What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Tell Me More podcast presented by Major League Success. We have Zach Cantrell with us from the Cantrell Real Estate Group at Keller Williams Capital Partners. Zach, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, John. Look forward to it. Watch the podcast, so I'm glad to be on it. So
we were talking a little bit before we got started, and with this podcast specifically, and what we're looking to do is just really talk about people's journeys to getting into this business and finding success in the business. And we always start with growing up. I always find that there's usually something that happens either early on in life or early on in one's career that has a lasting impact into their real estate business. What was life like for you growing up?
Mine was pretty normal. I grew up in the area that I'm in and the area that I sell in from that standpoint. So grew up in a real estate family. So my journey is a little bit different probably than most. I hear a lot of people, got cut from corporate America, got whatnot. But I was in probably 7th grade helping my mom put, 35 millimeter pictures on the front of folders that they used to hand out at open houses right before all the digital stuff came around. So kind of grew up in that. And I think she got in the business when I was in 5th grade. So did my homework at old musty mildew smelling brokerages in Ashley and Delaware, Ohio. And kind of got kicked off there. Yeah. Everybody's a little surprised when they see me and then they realize my license numbers doesn't have a year in front of it. 44810. My God, how long were you in the business?
Yeah, I got to ask, because I've had several people on here already that family or parents, have been in the business, and it's usually one way or the other. Were you someone that growing up you found to love real estate, or that you hated real estate?
No, I loved it. Like it was part of it. I'll be honest, you're gonna get me on a soapbox now, because it drives me nuts when you have these real estate agents and their kids hate the business, right? Like, oh, I'd never be a real estate agent, because it means that their mom or dad's at home just complaining about what is an awesome career, right? Like that. It's just an amazing career that somebody can have, and it's not being portrayed that way. And so, that's tough. So I loved it. It was in my blood from day one. So
I'm curious, what was it for you that you saw, in the business that turned you on to it?
Yeah, I think for me it was, honestly, it was just the kind of entrepreneurship side of it, right? Like the making your own rules, doing your own thing, and then helping, what we get to do, helping somebody in their journey from home ownership and being that consultant side of it. Yeah. There's no other feeling from being able to take somebody from that point of not, renting a house or living at home or in a dorm room or whatever, and then bringing them to their actual home where they're going to raise a family or whatever they're going to do in it. So I think that's really makes it. Yeah.
Did you see more of and I'm just curious, just because you said, they'll get you going on the soapbox. So now I'm going to dig a little bit deeper, but a little deeper. But did you see it more on the work-life balance, or was it always on the go? Because I'm just curious, because some agents, it's more of a job, meaning, we're on the clock with our clients and we're just reacting and we're going from 9 to 9, Monday through Sunday. And some people have it set up to where it's a business and, there is that balance within their life. So I'd just be curious of your own.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. Mostly it's with those scattered agents, right? That are just like running, ripping their hair out, trying to get to the next appointment or jumping out there. Seen the story the other day, somebody was upset because they drove to, hour away to show a house and the buyer didn't show up. Well, that ends when you do a buyer consult at your office before and you get to know them, when you're not just meeting them out at the house, right? Running it like a business. So I definitely seen it with that. Like, and I say it because my son just turned 18. Just turned 19 on Friday. And he should have his real estate license here real shortly. So he
Okay.
definitely wants to get into the business. I think he's seen the side of it. I didn't miss a soccer game. I didn't, this is my 23rd year in the business. So didn't miss a soccer game, didn't miss a dance recital, hardly ever missed a family dinner. From that standpoint, have my weekends for the most part at home with them, or if they had basketball games on the weekends, I'd show house, stop in, watch the basketball game, go out, show more houses.
Yeah.
When I was doing more of it myself. So yeah.
No, I mean, it's just an interesting, it's interesting because a lot of people that we speak to, and this is why I'm just curious with you growing up in the business is, a lot of us, myself included, we're not salespeople. A lot of times we're not even entrepreneurs. And a lot of times we don't understand how to set up our business to actually run like the business, to where you can kind of have some of that control, some of that freedom, to set some of those boundaries, because if you don't, then it will be running all over the place.
It definitely can, for sure.
So Zach, growing up, obviously being in the business, did you, high school years, did you have any other interests, hobbies? I know you said one of the things that caught your eye of real estate was the entrepreneurship side. Were you always kind of just like that business minded person, or is that something you learned along the way?
Started lawn mowing for some condos down on Powell Road at the time, right? Like back when I was 13, 14, whatnot. I worked in a machine shop for about a year, maybe. And then my high school career was McDonald's. So, which is funny, like when you look back, I actually learned a lot of business tactics and things from working in McDonald's, like just seeing the operation of a franchise work the way it does with the set rules and processes, and kind of stuff that I didn't really give any weight to until later. And I'm like, where did I pick that up? And then you realize, that was from my days at McDonald's. But no, high school was, I probably will, like every other high school kid, didn't really, knew what my parents, at that point in time, my mom and stepdad were starting to flip houses probably when I was maybe going into my junior year of high school. So doing a little bit of work on houses on the side with them, but not being all in with whatever they were doing, because obviously they weren't as cool as I was. So that was that for them. So yeah.
Did you know going right out of high school that you wanted to be into real estate, or did you end up going off to college?
Funny. I met my wife she's been my wife now for 23 years in July. Probably might not even have made it out of high school without her, right? Like I wasn't finding my way. My junior year was really bad. Like I always tell everybody, I'm probably smarter than most of them, because it only took me 3 years to get out of high school. Because my junior year wasn't considered a passing year. So I did it with my freshman, sophomore, and senior year. But she convinced me, or kind of her family convinced me, that college was the way to go. Like, hey, clearly this is how this works. Like you got to go to college. It was the late 90s. So it was, technology. So I went into information technology at the University of Toledo, and that lasted for about 3 months. I came home for Christmas break, and I knew I didn't want to go back, but I did because my girlfriend was there. Went back, ended up staying for like long enough to drop out of your classes and still pay for your second semester. And then at that same time, I had the money I'd saved up in high school. My parents let me put that into a flip that they were working on. And so I was coming home on the weekend and flipping houses, working on a flip house that they did. And that's kind of how that kicked off my, basically turned my $10,000 into about $30,000 within, 4 or 5 months. And then when you're rolling down to the job board for the school you're getting ready to go to for 4 years that you hate, because it's math, science, and English again, like high school all over again. And you realize, like, you're looking at job boards where it's like, oh man, it's going to take me a whole year to earn what I just earned flipping. The math wasn't working out for me. So that was like time to drop out. So left that and came back from Toledo, came back to Columbus, Ohio. And turns out you actually need a job to buy houses. You can't just buy houses without a job. So ended up getting on at Liebert Corporation, powder coat and parts on the floor. And I just had a great group of guys there that they were old timers and they weren't going to let me get stuck there. They were like, hey, they all have dreams and aspirations. And that's what's cool about it, John. Like, when you get that, I've always had tribes of people around me that just support everything that I do. And that I put all of that into them. Like they've pushed me through it. Those guys there were a big group where they were just like, you're better than here. You're getting out of here. You're going to fulfill those real estate dreams. And so, within about 2.5, I remember getting my real estate license probably about a year after I was working there, 1.5 years. And my buddy Tracy grabs me by the arm. He goes, did you pass your test? I'm like, yeah, I passed. He grabs me by my arm, takes me flying up the stairs, blasts open this office door, and he goes, he just got his real estate license. You want to buy a horse farm? He's your guy. And that was my first client, like sold a $440,000 horse farm, that within like 6 weeks of getting my license. And I was like, holy, talk about, I was making like $9 an hour, on at the floor at Liebert Corporation. And so it's just those guys, that's somebody that just believed in me and wanted me to be better, be better, have better than they did. And they like that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. No, I'm curious, was college just not the right fit? Like, was that like the entrepreneurship coming out? Like, was school like your thing, or just no subjects that really interested you?
Nothing really. The first time I'd ever really liked school, like even so, I really did fail my junior year. Like I failed it, but I had enough credits for my freshman, sophomore year that my senior year, after I met my wife between my junior and senior year, and I'm like, I kind of get my crap together. I had to take junior math, junior English, senior. I had to take my whole senior year was a load. Everybody else was on easy street. I had to take everything twice, loaded, ended up with a 3.9 GPA. But my junior year, I had a 0.08 GPA.
Oh, wow.
0.08 is F's in everything except for an A in shop. So I had an A in shop and F's in everything else because I just didn't do the work. It wasn't that I just didn't do it. It was just like uninterested, didn't really care about it. I had a job, was making money. I was working 36 hours because that was the max you could work at McDonald's at that point in time, and just didn't really care about school at all. So school wasn't my thing. Didn't like it until I walked into Honduras College. As soon as I sat down in principles and practice, I was like, oh, wow. If college would have been like this stuff, this interests me. I was on it.
I think it's so hard because, with college and stuff, I mean, like I went in 2007 and I would say it wasn't forced onto me by my family. It was kind of like implied a little bit, but it's so hard for 18-year-olds to make the decision of what they want to go for. And, I ended up originally going for accounting and I failed calculus and switched to a different major. And I was like you, I was looking at the jobs of like graduation. I'm like, well, a cocky 21-year-old just spent money to go through college. I'm like, well, I'm worth more than this, And,
absolutely.
And it's one of those things where it's like, I just got into real estate and I got lucky, and a lot of people know my story on here, but it was just that. It was just like, man, I wasn't terrible at school. I wasn't great at school. I did okay, but it wasn't like, it was hard to decide what to do and what to focus on for your whole career.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm still not sure what I want to do. So,
well, and this is like, this is why I love having, the top performing agents on in our markets, because we all come from so many different paths, so many different career choices. Some people it's, real estate is their fourth or fifth option, and some people it's their first, and there's no one end all be all way to get there. So, and what a cool story about, you going to that, was it like a factory kind of?
Yeah, it was a factory. I was literally powder coating parts on an assembly line. Like, And
Like,
at the time you were like, it was awful. Like it was like in my mind, it was the worst job you could ever. I mean, I remember one night on third shift, I literally, this was the motion with my hand, and it was a powder gun, you know, a spray gun. And
yeah,
you're spraying these squares that have 4 holes in them, and it was like 2,000 of them, and then the conveyor line's running, and you're just painting the same. You're almost falling asleep because it's third shift. You're painting these same pieces, so. But it was funny, man. Even I think entrepreneurs overall, like if anybody from Libra Corporation was watching this, like I realized the line speed was running at 9. And so the boots would dry, you know, you put the powder coat paint on it and then it goes to these heaters and
right,
dries at a certain pace. Well, I did some research and found out that we could probably double the pace of the line and still have the dryers dry the paint, and the test at the end would still work. So one night on third shift, I'm like, how many units has somebody hung in a, and they were like, I don't know, like 40. So one night on third shift, I was like, okay, guys, like I got the team together and like, listen, we're going to hustle tonight and we're going to hang. We ended up hanging 98 units that night because I sped up the
that's
line speed
crazy.
and everything tested out. And like from that point forward, everybody was mad at me because then the new line twice as fast as it was before. But you know, we quit working 16-hour days because it was killing me. Like
Yeah,
at that point in
yeah,
time, I don't work 16-hour days in here, you know, trading
but
hours for money. So
yeah, but how cool is that there was a group of people there that, saw the potential in you and said, hey, this isn't it, and
everybody needs to have it or be it. Like if that's what I always tell everybody, like be that person that's either rooting for somebody or have that side of it, because without those guys, I don't know, man, you could have easily jumped in the rut, right? Like you get a
yeah,
job, you get some bills. Now you can't be flexible and leave that. Like, what does that look like, when you get stuck there? And so either
yeah,
be that for somebody or look for that tribe
for
for you.
sure.
So,
For
yeah.
sure. So then you end up, going in, taking, your real estate classes. You get done with that. You're what, 21, 20?
I was 20. Yeah, I was 20. Yeah, when I got
Okay.
Yep, it was just
Okay.
turned 20, so it was June of 2000. Yeah, so
What was that like getting into the bit? What year was that?
that was 2000, June 6, 2000 was when I passed my
Okay.
real estate license
What
test. Yeah.
what was
I worked
that
long
like for you? What was that like for you? Because I was 22
Yeah.
when I got licensed. What was it? It was a little tough. Mine was probably a little bit easier because internet leads was more of a thing, right? It was easier for me to kind of get business that way. What was it like for you as a 20-year-old, in 2000?
Oh yeah. I'll be honest, back then, I mean, that was probably 5 or 6 years before. So like 2005, 2006, when I say all the young guys got into the business, like in 2000, like when I got in the business at 20 years old, I was definitely the youngest kid in any room I stood in, right? Like it didn't
Yeah.
matter. Everybody was 40 to 50 years old in the business. There was very seldom. There was a few that trickled in after me from that standpoint before we got to it. But back then we were, you could sit on office duty. You'd sit,
Yeah.
so they'd have agent duty. You'd sit on the desk and answer phone calls that would come into the brokerage and be able to take leads out. There really wasn't anything such as internet leads. We were starting to put internet websites up at the time.
Right.
I was working with my mom. We really weren't on the same team. I was just kind of helping out, and we were getting so many phone calls about land that she had listed. And this is crazy because you don't know what you don't know, right? Like
Right.
now you know what problem we had, and you're like, geez, we didn't really do a really good job of handling that. We were getting so many calls about the land that she would list that we started a website and put all the deed restrictions and we're like, let's put all the information on this website so people will quit calling us so they have the information. Well, then the website launches, and then like that next weekend, I got the same 30 phone calls of people asking questions about the land. And then I got 30 emails from more people asking about it. And like, it was just inundated with, all you did was double down on your leads at that point in time, and that was like the beginning. Nobody was sharing listings online or anything like that.
Right. Did you when you got in and being just younger, did you have any certain way of how you focused on growing your business? Because obviously, like a lot of times, like at that age, like our sphere of influence wasn't buying houses typically, right? And you'd have to gain the trust of probably someone in their 30s, 40s, 50s to trust you as their agent to help them with their largest asset, right?
Absolutely.
Um, how did you go about navigating those waters?
Yeah, I think what it was pretty early on, I think it's like with anything else, it is, I didn't, because my mom was in the business. It wasn't like I had that first year of database where I could be like, let me go to my friends and family and sell them all houses. She already had done that.
Yeah,
From that standpoint. So for me, it was a lot of the office duty, work the leads. Office duty, work the leads. I'll never forget the first one I got. I went on a listing appointment in Delaware, knocked on the door, and let me remind you, I looked like I was 12 when I was 20.
yeah,
Like I could barely grow a beard when I was 20, so I looked young. Knocked on the door, and I remember the guy like opened the door and he like looked out there and he was like, "Can I help you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm here to list your house." Like he's like, he goes, "You see this thing?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You need to grow one. I grew this when I was 25 in the sales business." Literally what he said to me. So walked into the house, ended up getting the listing because he just wanted to give me a shot, like
yeah,
young in the business from that standpoint. But I think early on, it's building a knowledge base. Like I really just dove into understanding scripts and dialogues. Even back then, a lot of that was just tapes and stuff, that old stuff that was sitting in the office, and learned how to talking tracks that I could use, because those talking tracks, if you control the conversation, then you sound like you know what you're talking about, right? When it goes through
yeah,
it. So it's easier to earn people's trust. But my gosh, I mean, that's what I always tell everybody. If you thought it was hard to get an agency disclosure signed now, back then it was a legal size document that was, pressed hard because there's 3 copies of it, had a big state of Ohio seal at the top of it. When I was asking these married couples at 45 years old, I looked like I was 12 to sign it. You'd have thought they had to give their firstborn to me or something. It was hard to get it signed, and you had to get that signed before you could even get them in the house back then.
yeah, yeah. It's and you brought up talking tracks. I call them conversation flows. Whatever you want to call it. The power of actually studying. I hate using the word scripts, but whatever those talking points are, whether it's a listing or a buy side, they're all the same. They don't really change much. One buyer conversation flow is probably going to happen multiple times, and the more comfortable you get with it, the more confident you'll be.
Yep.
The more competent you'll present yourself as well. So, Zach, when you got in, obviously, I always ask because I'm curious. Being young, obviously, you're in. Family was already in the business. Did you have supporters, doubters? Did you go in full time? Did you quit, the job and just jump right in, or how did
Yeah.
you
So
transition?
it kind of ended up being, definitely my mom. So, being in the business, she has supported me from day one still to this day. And so at the same time, all that stuff was happening when I had got my real estate license. My wife's uncle had offered me a pretty amazing sales job, like gave me basically a territory of 5 states and commercial building products, and said, "Hey, family loves you. They've talked great things about you. I think you're going to be awesome. Like, let's go do this." And so I seen that opportunity, knew I had my real estate license, but it was just too much of a great opportunity to kind of jump over into that sales world. And so I was doing that at the same time, right? Like, so I switched over, started doing that, and I realized, gosh, the training was awful. Sorry if her uncle's watching this, it is what it is. The training was awful. Like, he took me to his best clients and like, "Hey, this is how you do it. You walk in these big buildings, sit into these rooms, and like you talk about it, and then these are all engineered products, so they're spec'd on sheets, and they just buy them, And I'm like, "Oh, awesome." Well, turns out that's not how it works when you don't know them, right? Like, so I had no clients that I knew. None of them. There wasn't a base in the 5 states that I got. Like, I remember like pulling into Barnes and Noble and I literally read sales books. Like, how do I get indoors? Like, and then I'd use a strategy to get into a door and pretend like I knew somebody in the building. they would get me in the door, and started doing that. But I realized real quick, I didn't want to be on the road because that was a road warrior, like make your appointments on Monday, travel Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, home on Friday. Every 4 weeks, you're out for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
By that time, my wife was pregnant with our first. We started young. So she's pregnant with our first. Knew I didn't want to be on the road. And so that's where I like 9 months after I started that job, probably, I was like, hey, this isn't for me. And I'll be honest with you, I was standing there with no job. Picked up a car payment because he had a car stipend for me, but I bought the car. So he was just paying the stipend. So now I had a car payment. I had health insurance I had to pay for because he also gave me a health insurance stipend. Now I had health insurance that I had to pay for. And I'm sitting there with is no college degree and a real estate license. Is really where it ended up. And so that was kind of that following year. It was 2001. And I jumped in head first, and went to town on it. And it was his calls, open houses, doing everything you could. I think we ended up closing, if I remember right, I think it was we closed 18 transactions because we won Coldwell Banker's like Rising Star Award that year. That's the crazy part. 18 transactions. You're like, now you're like, what? People do that in a month.
You alone? But you alone? 18?
Yeah, it was mine. Mine. Yep.
Shit, dude. First real full year in the business. That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. I always expect more of myself, right? Like it was one of those things where you're like, oh man, could have done more.
What?
But yeah,
dive into those first couple years. Was it just instant success? Were there the highs, the lows? Can you lead me up through lead me up till 2009, right? Okay. I'm sure there may be some things that happened there.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, there's quite a journey in there. At first it was, I would say that first year you felt really good. Like, hey, making the money I need to make, doing the things I need to do. Turns out I didn't know to not spend all of that money. Like all the money that comes in isn't all yours. From that standpoint, there's gross revenue and net revenue, and so
things that they don't teach you in school, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then now I have a baby. We have a house that we have bought that year too, when I was still at Lieber Corporation. My wife now stayed, she wanted to stay home with the kids. So I told her she had to get her real estate license. So she did that too. 2000, you kind of get into that second year, third year, they were tough. Like all of a sudden, it just ran into that time period. 2001, you had 9/11 happen. So there was some weird, crash of 99, weird real estate stuff going on that was kind of mixed, and it was a little bit harder to be in the business. And some of my skill set just didn't, after I got out of it, I just couldn't get it in there. I am an entrepreneur. So I also tried starting a decorative concrete business in that time period and a bunch of other business ideas. So at that point in time, I'm scatterbrained, right? Like I've got this real estate thing over here, but I'm like wanting to start this and wanting to start that, and every other multi-level marketing business that comes at me, I'm like all in on that stuff. So year 2 and 3 sucked. Like it was not as good. Kind of coming into 2004, enough to survive and keep going. 2005, I decided to switch things up, and I went into the mortgage business. I went to work for Equitable Mortgage and tried to get in there. All those guys showing up in like 7 Series BMWs, and this is the way to go. So I rolled over there, finally got in with those guys. Are also my friends, and still
was that the reality of like, you just saw that they were making that income over on the financing side, so you wanted to just switch?
Yeah, and that was my mind, like I was just moving towards money, right? Like
sure.
So I just needed, I felt like, that was literally the mindset. Like these guys keep pulling up in expensive cars and wonder what you guys are making over there. So
it's like I always joke that Wolf of Wall Street's a great sales movie. It's like that scene, like show me your check and I'll quit today.
yeah, exactly. That's what I said. Like, man, you guys got to be doing something right over there. Plus, I had a lot of friends in the real estate business, right? Like, so I thought I'm going to go
Yeah.
over here and just kill it in the mortgage business with all these agents that are my friends. I had taught them all how, like I was the tech guy. So, I got them over from MLS books to MLS on computers, like all that stuff. So I like had all these friendships and things like that. I thought I would just kill it. Unfortunately, the real estate company I was with at the time also came out with a mortgage company almost at the same time I was leaving. So it was just like that was when the first time people had turned their back on me in the business, where I was like, oh, that didn't feel good, So go over to Equitable Mortgage 2005, like did okay, like had a slow start, and then kind of came around to it. Ended up knowing that, like, and I'll be honest with you, when I went to the mortgage business, it was more of I always said it was kind of part of my college education that I didn't get yet. I also wanted to know, why does it take 2 weeks to get through underwriting? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like back then they were like, oh, it's in underwriting. Like anytime you'd ask them, like, where's it at? It's in underwriting. Now they can't lie to us because we know underwriting takes like
Right.
Right. Like if it's in underwriting, it's there. So I want to know what the heck was going on over there. So I learned that entire process, right, and did that. Ended up being at Equitable. I was at Equitable Mortgage when the first fax came over from Franklin American Mortgage, and I remember seeing it. I was like, this. Now we're getting into, like, I was there 2005, 6 to, like, in the mortgage business to like 2000, mid 2008. So I was in the mortgage business, the lowest yield spreads. Like you couldn't even made the left. Like everybody traded in a Mercedes for like Priuses, and it was a mess. Like nobody was making any money in the mortgage business when I was there. Pulled off the first fax, and it was like, we're no longer accepting correspondent lending. And I was like, oh, I don't know what this means, but walked it into my boss, Bruce, and he's like, his eyes just got that big around. He's like, oh no. Like, and that was 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, it started coming out on the news that, banks are falling and everything like that. So I ended up switching over to a bank for like 6 months or something, because at that time, a mortgage bank felt really unsafe compared to just being at
Right.
So for my family, I'm like, I'm going to go over here to this First Place Bank or something like that. And then stayed there for like 9 months or something, where it was just like, you know what, it's time to go back home. And I'm going to go back over to Keller and get going on this real estate career. And so I hit that in 2009, picked up a friend at Equitable, one of my best friends of this day. And we also, he was the money side of flipping houses. So we were starting to flip houses. We were going to sheriff sales before 2009. So during that 2005 to 2009, I was doing all of the CMAs and determining property values and after repair values. And then we were going down to the sheriff sales bidding. We were buying like 6 to 8 a year or so, like at that point in time, and then selling them. 2009, now we're into 2009, where the market just tanks from that standpoint.
Right.
I was just sitting in the perfect spot. Like I had a best friend that we just flipped houses with. We ended up started doing a self-directed IRA with his IRA money, because we knew what was going to come, and we had fun. Like 2009, 10, 11, just buying share sales, flipping them. And that's what really helped me take market share. Like I was putting houses on the market. Everybody else was putting houses on the market that were just junk and, torn apart, crappy listings. And I was putting on completely remodeled, nice new flip listings. And then I was getting clients from that. So like every listing I put on, I'd pick up 2 buyers from it. And then that kind of started to roll through till about December of 2012, when the mortgage moratorium got put on and kind of just halted foreclosures. I remember it carried a $50,000 deposit check around from basically December of 2012 till August of 2013. Because it was going to be like the next one I was going to be buying, and I'm like, this isn't working so much. Like the sheriff sale thing wasn't working anymore. They weren't foreclosing as much. America's Homes for Rent came into town. They were bidding 40, 50 grand over anything to pay for the. They were big tech money was running us out, is what ended up.
And I remember around that time, I had a couple investors. I got in 2011. License end of 2011. I started in real estate spring of 2011, but around that time, 2015, 13, 14, 15, I started to see money coming in from different countries even, you
Yeah.
know. I remember, I forget the agent off the top of my head. I want to say it was at Keller Williams, but out of Austin, flew in to meet with us, and he had investors from Japan
Yes.
that were wanting to come in and just buy up everything, you know. And
Oh, I
yeah.
was so they rained on my party, man. Like it was we were having fun. There was like 3 or 4 of us down there. We all knew each other. And we're like, hey, you get that one, I get this one, you get that one. Like we were having fun. Then all of a sudden it was like, I thought it was a fraud. Like, how do these people come in and buy, like this has got to be a fraud. There's no way they have this much money. I would
Yeah.
start bidding them up. I mean, I spent no less than $4 or $5 million of their money, like bidding them up, like over, because I realized like they're not going to stop. So I'm like, okay, I'll just spend their money and then they'll get out of here. Turns out they're still here.
They never went away.
Yeah.
So lead me up to kind of like current day with just your business, how you're growing it, kind of where you're from that time period of, okay, now there's another shift coming, right?
Yeah.
Of, okay, the flipping, and that was kind of almost a lead generation, like you said, allowed you to gain market share, pick up buy clients, those types of things. Lead me up to kind of current day.
Yeah. So coming out of 2012, kind of ended that flipping kind of thing. 2013, 14, I didn't evolve with it. So anytime you don't evolve with a business, it eats you, right? So was flipping available? Absolutely. That's when people were really starting to get into wholesaling and it was mainstreaming all of that stuff. Hindsight, I missed out on a lot of opportunity that I didn't know existed at that point in time, right? But I was focused on, Keller Williams was teaching me how to build a team. So like at 2013, 2014, I started bringing on buyer's agents, full-time assistants. I think at one point in time, we had four buyer's agents, 5 buyer's agents and a full-time assistant. My wife was helping at home at that point in time. She was kind of in the midst of the kids. That kind of rode us through, we were doing 15-ish million, 15, maybe 17 million in a year. We're bringing on agents. So what I was proud of is like, we're bringing on agents that were doing like 3 or 4 deals a year and turning them into agents that were doing 24 to 35 deals a year at this point in time. That was fun for a while. And so that kind of led into kind of agent, like anything else, agents in and out, train them. They go off and do great things, which I was always proud of. Like never was too angry about that. Like you're just proud that they were off doing good things in the real estate industry. So I had that happen a little bit, rebuilt the team again in like 2017. And then kind of went to more of a online lead generation phone animal kind of business where we were dialing for dollars every day. Like we had auto dialers and we were making 100 calls a piece, and there was like 4 people on the team at that point in time. And kind of you'll burn through a team like that. Just you got to have death. You don't have real estate agents doing that. You have people that want to get up and do that every day, do that. So we burned through that team. I rolled over, and I had an assistant at the time, and we were going through it was tough. And I rolled over and looked at my wife one morning. I'm like, you ready to get back in the business? Like, cause she was home with the kids at that time, but now they're getting into high school and she's bored during the day. Right. Maybe she wasn't that bored. She was enjoying life too much. So I'm like, and she's like, why? And I'm like, I think I want to start over. Like, I just want to just go back down. I'm going to go sell. Tired of dealing with this buyer's agent thing. And I just want to go sell and like, let's just go make money, and you're going to process all the files. And so that was like 2017 that I decided to do that. I wiped everything out. And just went to me and her doing that. And then I used some showing assistants to kind of help me manage my life at that point in time. Cause I knew I didn't want to go back into that, like showing all the time. And then we also made the decision to become very listing heavy. So that was like 2017. I'm like, I've got to get this to about a 75-25 business. Is what we were trying to achieve, which is what ultimately ended up happening. Because then I picked up some investors in town that we became their sole listing agent, which we still are today for them. Probate court leads at that point in time. I got into meetings with some attorneys and got those relationships set up, which is still those two are our primary source now of where we get listing leads from. And here's the thing, most of those don't have buyers attached to the other end of them. So it kind of sucks because you don't get the 2-for deal, right? But
sure,
it supplies a very steady flow of business without having to deal with a buyer on the other end if you don't want to. Like, that's just where we were at in business. We just didn't want to deal with the buyers on the other side of it as much. So I'm very selective with who I work with on a buyer side. Like, right now, I don't have internet leads out there. I work with past clients only or referrals from past clients only when it comes to buy sides. So
yeah, it's interesting. I think you might be the first one on here that made that conscious decision to go so list side heavy.
Yeah, and it was selfish. It was selfish is what it was. It was, I knew what my buyer's agents were doing at the time and how much they were doing. And I'm like, I know what, if it shifts and I get rid of everything, like, it's going to shift back into my lap. And I mean, at one point in time when I was, you're talking like 2012, 2013, I remember I closed 13 buyers in a month. Like,
yeah.
And it was like, it was insane,
I mean, our team has a lot of newer agents, meaning 5 years or less. And, I always tell them, like, this market, the one good thing about this market was you showed a house, you were writing an offer. Back then it was, we showed 15 houses in one day to one person and no offers were written. And you're out back again on Sunday,
absolutely. I used to tell a story in my buyer presentation, and I changed it because I was like, oh, hey, we're here to work for you, right? Like, we'll show you 60, the most that anybody's ever seen was 62 homes with me. And it was one, like, they started in Hilliard and ended up in Reynoldsburg, because they were kept going. And then I realized one day, I'm like, I think these people are trying to beat the 62. So I switched the story and I'm like, we have been able to put people in houses in the first 3 that they've seen. It's just like HGTV. Like, you get to see 3. I swear people were trying to beat it. So now it's a little bit different. But yeah, so that was 2017 was that. And it really, really paid off, right? Like 2018, 2019, that's where everything, you felt more in control of it from that standpoint.
Right.
We hit that pandemic, which I was still just doing the same thing, right? It didn't change for me any, because we would hit some of the buyers, but we weren't out. I also started another business in 2020. So that was when SmartLevel Concrete was born, which is our lifting and leveling company that polylevel foam. So that started in 2020. First full year was 2021, 2022. We just launched 2023 season this year. So that company I built using Millionaire Real Estate Agent, the red book from Keller Williams. We built it the same way we did it when that's sitting somewhere around 18, 19 employees, and rocking. So we're loving that's going on while everything else is happening too. And that was a fun time. So I kind of like 2020, we were just managing listings. Like, my wife helped me heavily.
Right.
She's like, I'm bringing that in. She's managing that paperwork because I was able to go start another company with a partner and kind of get that thing going over there while she's managing. Because when you're managing listings, you're the inventory, right? You're the store. People are coming into your store. They're doing less, right, with more. And ended up happening in 2021. Last year was probably our worst year ever in real estate. We just hit a weird spot where past clients weren't moving. The investor side of our business kind of started wholesaling more. So we got less flip listings, and it just became this like, ooh, what happened? That didn't feel good. Now we had the other business that, offset it, which was cool. And I had my hands more in that side of the business. Now we're up to this year, this beginning of this year. I mean, I'm excited for I'm reinvigorated in it too, because the SmartLevel, starting that business on the other side of it, I was kind of like in the minutia of the business, and now I'm just about that side of it. And obviously my son getting into it, and we got some cool things coming up from that standpoint. So we're looking forward.
Like anything, you got to be willing to pivot and change, with the market and what's going on. And, last year, your investors probably weren't buying and selling as much just because of rates alone,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I'm sure, you being tied into the other part of the business kind of took away some of the effort and energy from the real estate side. And,
Absolutely.
but, I always talk to agents about, real estate's always going to move. It's just whether or not you're going to move with it and change the way you do things.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it is. This year started off really, really well. Like I think if anybody else is in the business, they probably know like my 2013, 14, 15 buyers, which we had crazy good years those years. Those guys are all now wanting to sell their house. So like
Yeah.
phones blowing up, we've kept in touch with those guys
And
and
they all did really, really, really well.
oh, they're killing it. Like I'm loving it. Like seeing it all. They're like they're moving into some big houses, right? So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
fun to see them. So some of them are moving to other states, which I'm okay with too, right? Because
Yeah,
we like that list side and then refer out
for
advice.
sure. Zach, I want to kind of now move gears and look into the future. I know we got a couple minutes left here with you. What's something that you're looking to accomplish in the next 12 months?
In the next 12 months, we really want to, well, one, get my son licensed and get his feet wet in the business. I'm excited for him. Those young kids, man, sometimes they fail at something once. He's not passed the test the first time he took it. I'm like, hey, you know what? You just gotta get up and run at the brick wall again, right? Like that's what you
Yeah,
got to do. So want to do that, and really want to hit the our listing goal for this in the next 12 months. That's really when it gets back to it. When my affirmation used to be I'm a fit and healthy businessman that lists at least 10 homes each and every month, right? And so really focused back on hitting that 10 listings a month. And that's really what I would like to achieve in the next 12 months from that
I
standpoint.
love that. What are you looking to accomplish in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, we would have made a transition, I think, on the real estate side of it to transition my son into the lead kind of spot, right, on the team. So he's running that side of it, and then on the SmartLevel side of it, and the construction side of it, that business we did 850 the first year, 1.7 the
Wow.
second year. We're going to do about 3 million this year on it. So in the next 5 years, we want that one to be somewhere between that 7 and 9 million mark. Which I think what is the saying? People overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5 years. Right? So I think those two things would be great accomplishments as far as business goes.
Sure.
So,
Sure. Now, congratulations on the success of the construction side.
yeah, it's fun, man. Like, you know what that one was? It was like, and this why I'm going to go back. Real estate business, like the business of real estate, it's hard. It's being at 23 years, it is hard to transition that into a business. Like,
Yeah.
SmartLevel was easy. Like, I just took all those things. I went over here and I started this construction company. And you're like, how? What? Like, why is this so hard? It was so much easier to do. The real estate business is hard, man. And so, like,
Yeah.
for anybody out there trying, like, just beat their head up against the wall, it's hard. It's way harder than anything. I've proven. I went over here and started another company that's doing, I mean, that's the equivalent to having a real estate team doing a gross commission income of $1.7 million last year. How hard is that, right? And so, in its second year, it's crazy. So I think that's important to remember. It's a little bit of a different animal from that standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different things. We don't have time to unpack it all there
Yeah,
that probably played into it. Just from a mindset, right? I mean, that's one of the things with agents and building teams and actually building a business is you got to remember the majority of people in our business either are entrepreneurs or think that they are entrepreneurs, so therefore they want to do things their way and not your way, right? Whereas over there, you're probably dealing with a little bit more people that understand, W-2, get paid every 2 weeks. I'm here to work and do X, Y, and Z, and I'm not here trying to take over the company or be the company, right?
that's it.
So,
That's it.
Zach, what is a legacy goal of yours? What's something that you're looking to accomplish or hope to accomplish when you're no longer here?
That's one of the things I think we've done. I've done the worst thing at is getting started on that part of my life, right? Like I think we all do it. We like wait for a certain period of time. So one of my goals is to move into a charity side of the business, right? And so that my idea for the charity side of our real estate arm is we call it 1 for 1. So every house that we sell, we put is to put a homeless person into housing.
Oh, wow.
So that's our idea. I've talked about it for years. It's time to get started. I would love to see that be the legacy that moves on for me and lives after me, because that is just a huge problem. Like that's what we're in, right? We're in the business of housing. So why not figure out how to do that? I used to think like, how am I going to do that? And like buy houses. Well, the reality of it is it doesn't take a lot when you figure out how much it costs to do that each year. You can kind of start to see how the money can be raised to be able to do that, and have that goal accomplished. Other than that, would be to see, like everybody wants their, like now it's like have my son run a business bigger than I ran it and better than I ran it, from that standpoint. But really want to focus on the charity side of what we do and make that huge and work on homelessness in Delaware County and then homelessness in Columbus and let's just wipe it off the map. Let's make it not a thing. So
yeah, no, I love it. That's awesome. That's awesome. I know we got a couple minutes left, but we always end with this question. And it's if you could give our audience one piece of advice that you wish you had or that you got or that you always give to a real estate agent who's either starting out or just, in the business, doing the business, what would that be?
Yeah. So one piece of advice, I said this in video out to my networking group the other day, and it is always ask yourself, are you happening to your business or is your business happening to you? And really think about that, because if your business is happening to you and you don't know where it's coming from, because we do that as real estate agents, like, hey, I'm having a great year, this is awesome. If you don't understand where that's coming from, you can't control it. And if you can't control it, you can't do it again, and you can't make that happen. So make sure you're happening to your business and you're making that business happen, rather than just things are just, I'm getting lucky right now, right? Like it all takes some luck, but you don't want to let too much of that happen. So always wake yourself up with that question. Am I happening in my business, or is my business happening to me? And then you'll kind of do it from there, from that standpoint. And always, like every place I'm at, like I'm a CrossFitter, right? Like that's another tribe of mine. Like they support everything for me. They support my business. I go to CrossFit. People think it's expensive to pay for the monthly membership. I probably make like 50, 60 grand a year out of that place, right? Like, cause it's just referrals and just different things. So every conversation that you have has to be wrapped around real estate, even if you don't want it to be every once in a while. Like it has to be, because eventually it will be. Like I can't walk into a room without it being part of the conversation now.
Or it doesn't have to necessarily be, but they have to know that you're the person, that if real estate comes up amongst their friends or amongst their people, that you're the name that they're referring to.
That's
right?
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
And I was laughing or smiling because I always know there's something that typically happens early on in one's life or career that has an impact. And you mentioned working at McDonald's and how you didn't really realize how much of an impact that probably has made in your business. And what you just said as far as that advice is how we thought about building our team was, how can you franchise this? How can you duplicate processes? How can you duplicate results? How can you predict success? And that's what McDonald's and any other franchise does, right?
Yep.
Whether you correlated it to that's how I correlated it to your story was how do I duplicate this to where I can just plug and play multiple people into it to give the same experience and then to get the same results.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it.
Well, Zach, I appreciate you jumping on here. For those that are watching, if you have questions about buying, selling, or you're a real estate agent and you just want to pick Zach's brain, if you've resonated with his story, his number is down below at the bottom of the screen. But Zach, for those that are listening in, on the podcast, what's the best way for someone to contact you?
Just use my cell phone number, 740-272-2316. Text me, call me. I'm old school too. So if you text me, I might pick up the phone and call you. Just answer.
Now, Zach, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate you coming on here, sharing, your journey and your story into the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was fun. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.
Have a good one.